Hello, everybody. I hope you're all well. I haven't uploaded a podcast for about, I think like 3 or 4 weeks. And the reason being was I wasn't feeling very creative, very inspired with the podcast. And I was kind of like stressing myself out about it a little bit. So I didn't really know who I wanted to interview or what I wanted to get out of the podcast. So I just thought that I'd give myself a few weeks break just to really think about it and to try and just kind of get my creativity back a little bit. And in the meantime, whilst I have been thinking about it, I've also been writing down what I have learned from podcasting since I started. And as I'm writing it down, I thought, you know what, this could actually be a podcast of its own, because I know that there's so many people that have just started their own podcast, and I know a lot of people that are thinking of starting their own as well. So I thought it could be really useful for a lot of people just to kind of talk about my experience so far. I started my podcast at the beginning of this year. I think it was the end of February or something like that. And I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm not gonna lie, it has been harder than I thought it was. So I'm just gonna kind of go through the things that I've learned and things that I've realized on the way. So the first thing, obviously, when you start a podcast is working out why you're doing this podcast. What is the purpose of your podcast? And I started mine really because, so I've been interviewing now for, about 8 years. 8 years. So obviously on radio and a lot of different online TV channels, all inside the dance music industry. So most of my interviews that I've done since the age of, I think I was 19 when I started, have basically always been with DJs or producers. And it kind of gets to a point where it was all getting a little bit repetitive for me. I think a lot of the questions I was probably asking were very similar for a lot of people. You kind of get a lot of similar answers. And I thought, you know what? There's a lot of things that I don't actually know about this industry. I don't know what a lot of people do in this industry. And I would love to learn a lot more about the hard work that goes into a DJ's career, or starting your own party brand, or running a nightclub. Like, there's so many people that work in this industry, and I think I've always just been so focused on, okay, this DJ's career, that DJ's career, and interviewing all the similar kind of profiles. So I thought it'd be so nice just to, for my own sake, just to learn. But also I think there's a lot of people that have absolutely no idea what other people do. And at the same time, I think it would be really interesting for people that want to pursue a career in this industry. It would be very interesting for them to talk about how people started their career and the journey that they've had so far. So that was kind of my idea. And that was the purpose of my podcast. So I think the first thing you always have to do before starting a podcast is to work out why you're doing it. What do you want to get out of it? And then to start off this episode, I also want to talk about what I knew about podcasting before I started my own. The answer is basically nothing. I had absolutely no idea, because I know a lot of people that say, oh, I'd love to do a podcast, but I have no idea where to start. I think the truth is nobody really knows where to start. All I knew was that I loved listening to podcasts, and I also really love listening to people interview other people. I don't know if that's just because I interview a lot of people, so I love to listen to how other people interview and what questions they ask. And I had no idea. I didn't know what equipment I had to buy. I had no idea how to edit a podcast. I didn't really know where to start. So the way I started it was by really listening to different types of podcasts. So not necessarily just ones that are related to dance music, but from all different kinds of topics. And then I watched a lot of YouTube videos, how to edit and what equipment you should buy to start your own podcast. This became really tricky because there's so many different things you can buy to different microphones, your headphones, what equipment you need on your computer, what programs. And it was all getting a little bit confusing for me. So I actually we were in LA at the time. We were there for about 3 months at the beginning of the year. So I remember going into Guitar Center and literally just saying, I want to start a podcast and I have no idea what to buy. So I kind of gave them my budget, and I was in the shop for ages as well. I think I went in a couple of times actually. And they told me what would be best, and just gave me a few suggestions. And yeah, that's how I got all of my equipment. So I think the first thing that I learned there was, don't be afraid to ask people. I also asked around, I asked other people that have got podcasts of their own and what their experiences had been. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, when you start a podcast, how do you edit it? Like, I have no idea whatsoever. I've edited like videos on my laptop before, but like using iMovie and stuff like that. But I've never edited audio. So again, I watched a lot of videos on YouTube, and I actually just started doing it all on GarageBand. It's so simple to use and it's free on everyone if you have a Mac. And then since then, I have started using Ableton, which sometimes when I open it, there's just so much to it, and I hardly know how to use it properly. I only know to do what I want to do, but I still have got loads to learn. But to start off with, GarageBand is so easy and so simple to use, so I would recommend that to anyone. And as I said before, again, don't be afraid to ask people for help. I am very lucky to have some very good friends in my life that have sat down with me. My good friend Carl, who I've known since I started at Amnesia, he has spent a lot of time with me showing me different things on how to edit. I also sat down with Latman a couple of weeks ago and he gave me a few tips as well. So don't be afraid to ask people. It's just all part of learning. Then the next thing that I had to work out was, okay, so now that I've got it, I've edited my first podcast, how do you get it out there? I honestly thought that when you upload a podcast, you had to upload it to all of these different websites. So my podcast is on podcasts on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's on Google Play Music, I think it's on Stitcher and on Podbean. So I thought that when you started it, you uploaded each one individually. That is not how it works. You have your hosting page, you upload your file to one page, and then it's distributed to all of the other websites. That for me was really tricky at the beginning. I couldn't work out exactly how to do it. Again, I asked for help, you read up on it, and Podbean's been so easy to use. The only reason I actually think I chose that one, I think it was because I was following somebody else's podcast who I don't actually know personally, but I really enjoyed their podcast, and I think she used Podbean as her like hosting website. I think you call it a hosting website. I'm not too sure if that's the name for it, but that's what I'm going to call it. So I just decided to use that. I think it's like €12 a month or something like that. Really easy to use, and I think the next tricky thing for me was getting the podcast verified on iTunes, which it just took a couple of days for me to figure out as well. But once you kind of have all of that done, then it's easy. So setting up the podcast itself for me was really difficult. Well, really difficult. It was tricky. It was a challenge. And then my next stepping stone was, so I decided my podcast was going to be weekly, which I thought would be a piece of cake. It would be easy. I know loads of people in the industry that I could interview. That wasn't the case. You can't rely on people all the time. As much as people will say, yeah, let's do it, let's record it this day or let's record it the next, it's always good to have a backup plan or plan your podcast a few weeks in advance. I think this is the biggest mistake I've made, is that I was doing it weekly. So I would interview somebody on a Monday and get it out by the Thursday, because I had in my head every Thursday is going to be my podcasting day. It doesn't always work out like that. It really doesn't. And that's something I found really tricky. I didn't really plan it very well. So yeah, there was a lot of people that maybe they'd said to me, oh yeah, let's do the podcast on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I'm relying on doing that podcast to get it out on Thursday. And then they'll probably say, listen, I can't, like something else has come up. And then you don't have a podcast. And then I would get myself all stressed out about it because I don't have a podcast out. So that is something else that I've learned, and I think you should really keep in mind, especially if you're going to do it weekly. Weekly is actually quite a lot. I didn't think it was going to be that much, but it is. Then the next thing was quality over quantity. So I remember there was a podcast that I'd recorded and the sound quality was not very good. And again, I was relying on that podcast to get it out on the Thursday. And I was umming and ahhing about it for ages. Do I upload it? Do I not? So I remember writing on my Facebook, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to listen to a good quality podcast, even if it's not out on the day that you would expect it to be out on? Or would you just want it to be out on that day, on the Thursday anyway? And I think everybody, apart from one person, I remember on that post, everyone said definitely quality over quantity. And I actually have realized that myself. When I listen to other people's podcasts, I would much prefer to listen to a good quality sound, a good audio quality, rather than it just being out on the day that I would think it was going to be. The thing is, you don't always listen to it that day anyway. Sometimes if I listen to somebody's podcast that I know is out every Monday, I probably won't listen to it until the Wednesday anyway. So you kind of have to keep these things in mind as well. The next thing, ask for feedback from people and listen to people's feedback. The person that I always ask for feedback from is my mum. Anything that I do, even if it's something that I've written, or if I'm not too sure how I've worded an email, or just any of my podcasts, interviews, anything, I always say to her, what do you think about this? Feedback's so important. I think sometimes I used to get really frustrated with people's feedback because I used to be like, why have they said this? And I used to probably take it the wrong way, but it's actually so good. It's just like constructive criticism, which is always great. I remember at the beginning, my mum used to say to me, I've probably done this in this podcast about 100 times already, but I a lot. So I'll be like, and now I listen back to it, I'm like, oh, Katie, stop doing that. And also I have a really bad habit of finishing people's sentences, and I know that is so annoying. I've listened back to myself so many times. I'm like, oh, please don't finish a sentence, please don't finish it. That's a very bad habit I have as well. And you just learn from them things. You learn from every piece of advice or feedback that anyone gives you. So always ask for feedback from people that are around you, your close friends, family, people that know you well, because it's really, really important. Also, listen back to your own podcasts. I really actually do not like the sound of my own voice. I don't think anyone does. I don't think anybody likes the sound of their own voice. But it's really good to do so because you'll pick up on things that you do as well, and you will learn from their mistakes. So always try and listen back to every episode you do. And I also actually write down a lot of the things I hear from my own podcast. And I also write down things I don't like about other people's podcasts, because you learn from listening back on other people's as well. But don't compare yourself to other people, because that is a mistake that I've made before. At the beginning of starting the podcast, I definitely have compared myself to other people before and been like, well, they started their podcast at the same time as me, and why do they have so many downloads, and how has so-and-so got onto their podcast? Everybody's podcast is their own personal space. Everybody's podcast is going to be different. So don't compare yourself to other people, because you will probably be doing an absolutely amazing job just doing what you're doing and being you, and you don't have to try and copy somebody else's or the way somebody else has done it. There's no right or wrong way to do a podcast. There isn't. The nice thing about a podcast is that it's yours, and it's your show, and it's your space and your time to say what you want and how you want to do it. So don't ever try and compare yourself with anyone or copy what anyone's doing. Just be yourself and just go with it. The next thing was prepare and plan your questions and what you're going to say. Now, I do this with every interview that I do, if it's on the radio, if it's for something for TV, I always plan what I'm going to say. Even if I don't have it written down, I always have a mental note in my head. There's nothing worse than interviewing someone and then all of a sudden your mind just goes blank and you don't know what to say next. It's really, really awkward. And then I feel like you kind of lose the flow in the conversation. So I always plan out mentally, or I have it written down. I use Evernote a lot. So I always have Evernote open when I'm podcasting and I have a few notes jotted down. It's really important just to have worked out exactly where your interview is going to go, what questions you're going to start with and what questions you're going to end with. So just make sure that there's like a nice journey in your questions, so they're not really random, because a lot of people are probably used to being interviewed, especially on my podcast, because a lot of people, they're not DJs or producers, it's just people that work in the industry. So a lot of people haven't been interviewed before. So you have to keep that in mind as well. If there is going to be an awkward space, you know what to say and how to carry on the conversation. And I think that's kind of it. I think they're the main things that I've definitely learnt from the journey so far. It is harder than I thought it was going to be, as I said at the beginning, but it is so much fun. It's rewarding, and you learn so much from it. I've learned so much over the last few months, from just setting up the podcast to what I've been talking about with all of the different guests I've had on the podcast. So just enjoy it. Don't stress out about it if you don't have a podcast for 1 week because you didn't interview the right person, or the quality wasn't good enough, or you just didn't feel good about the interview. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. There's nobody, you're never going to have anyone being like, oh, why isn't your podcast? Well, actually, that's a lie. It does happen. I have had people before like, why haven't you put a podcast out today? But again, it's your space, it's your time, and the podcast is there for you to enjoy it and for you to learn from it. So don't stress out about it. Enjoy and have fun. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope I haven't just spoken loads of rubbish, which I hope I haven't, but I hope this is helpful to other people that have just started their podcast or are thinking of starting their own. My recommendations would be just go for it. It's great, and enjoy the journey. So thank you so much. Said this, I definitely feel a lot more creative now and inspired, and I've got quite a lot of really interesting guests coming up. So I hope you enjoy them, and a big thank you to everybody that listens to the podcast and has listened so far. I'm really, really grateful, and I hope you've enjoyed all of the episodes as much as I have. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye.